Welcome to another edition of the Arena Craft Podcast, the show focused exclusively on Magic the Gathering Arena and some new formats, which we're going to talk about today. My name is Arjuna. I'm one of your hosts. I'm joined today by our other co-hosts, CovertGoBlue and CGB Ob Nixless.
Nixless, Bob.
Bob Nixless. Nixless.
Nixless. Nixless?
Bro. If you hadn't ascertained, crafties, we have a lot to talk about today with regards to Streets of New Capenna's most infamous gangster. CGB and I are coming fresh off of a week of both playing in the early access event. They brought those back. It was interesting. And also getting our teeth sunk in with a couple of days of playing this format. So we're definitely going to spend most of the show talking about that. We also want to talk about Explorer, which is a format that was announced since the last time we recorded this podcast. So we're going to touch on that briefly as well. But yeah, CGB, just checking in, man, hearing your regular voice. How's it been going for you?
It's been a minute, hasn't it? We recorded 2 shows 2 weeks ago and then took some time for the new Capenna paper release and then the new Capenna arena release. I spent the Capenna release at PAX East in Boston, so playing with some of the pre-release events there. I got to meet a lot of fans. Thank you to everybody. Boston has been really nice to me in the past, and it did not disappoint this time. I met so many cool people. Really cool to meet people who watch the show. Also, always fun to spend time with other people, content creators in the business, and get to talk to other content creators about content creation, because it's a very weird job that's pretty tough to relate to for the most people really don't understand the business or the job very much. So big shout out to Andy Lavinius and Amy and Voxy and MTG Nerd Girl and other content creators I got to spend time with. That was really a good weekend. And I got back at 1 a.m. on Monday, and by 11 a.m. on Tuesday, we were in an early access event that at the time I got on the plane wasn't officially a thing.
Wild.
Oh my gosh. They brought it back. Just when you thought you were out, they pulled you back in.
Pulled us back in. I know. It was so wild to see that. And of course, it occasioned this mad dash to get on the roster to actually play the thing, which was okay, there's a number of things about that, right? The access to various people, the omission of various, LSV, maybe a Magic player you may have heard of. Magic players such as Arne Huschenbeth, Pro Tour winner, frickin' MPL member, right? Not getting invited. Top 10 streamers such as Ash Lizzle having to throw her weight around just to get on the roster. So, I mean, we could definitely talk about that. But also, they're just sometimes it felt like there weren't that many people playing in the early access event. Did you have some long queue times? Because I sure did.
Oh, especially towards the end of the night, it got really long, for sure. I do want to talk about the invite list for this thing. Yeah. I don't think they have a real one. No, I'm not kidding. So there's kind of a feels bad and there's a pride situation here. But when you found out about it, you sent a message to who we had an understanding from experience in the past was the right person, and you got added, right?
Yep.
So I see a lot of people, and I don't know if they're sending that message or not, but they're immediately going to social media being like, hey, I'm not in this. What's going on? I don't think they actually have a list. I don't think they even know who to invite at first. The official announcement for early access came out at 5 p.m. or something like that on one of these days. I didn't get my invite email for 2 more hours. I didn't talk to anybody. But when it first came out, I was like, okay. But I didn't post anything, and I just kind of waited. And 2 hours later, I got an email. So I don't know what all the situations were. I would just say, if you're a content creator listening to this, or if you're a fan whose favorite content creator was butthurt that they weren't invited, first of all, I agree, they should be invited. But second, you got to work with the reality that you're handed, not the reality you hope there is. And if there's literally no list, if people are really just making this up as they go, you got to be willing to send some messages or make some noise to get invited. I don't know if those people, the right people, are going to read every tweet. There was a content creator manager for Wizards of the Coast who said, reply to this tweet and, we'll try to get you into an event. I don't know how many people actually did that. But yeah.
It was also some kind of oblique suggestion to send an email to the previous email that we had used, which, as far as I know, yielded absolutely no results. But
right.
Maybe something happened.
The content creator program for Magic has been a rocky road, and it went from nothing at all to seemingly some amount of organization to absolutely like abandoning that organization. Like when they had the Stream Elements challenges, and it like the same people were getting invited to everything, and they had a Discord server that got completely abandoned, and nobody touched it for a year, I think.
Yeah.
And now we're like rebuilding. Maybe it's going to be something in the middle. Maybe it's going to be a lot of wink, nudge, and contact the right people. Maybe it's going to be a lot of angry pros posting on Twitter that they're not invited to things. I don't know.
It's just like, you're right. There's something so profane and heinous about the fact that, like, like me, Rando Arjuna, who hardly ever streams, like, I just like reached out to the right person and I got added. And I'm very grateful for that. And then meanwhile, really well-known streamers who should have been added weren't, because they didn't whisper in the right person's ear or whatever. Right. And so, there's something that is deeply flawed about that. And I felt almost a little bit of like survivor's guilt or something. You know what I mean? Like, it should have been you. It should have been you, man. So it is weird. And part of it was just so strange because, like, I don't know, like, anyone who hasn't been living under a rock, who pays any attention to like Magic Twitch or Magic Twitter or anyone, like, would probably have just like a list of 50 people off the top of their head. Right. It's like, I would just go down a list of streamers that I know who stream Magic. And like, that's already like, I don't know, 30 to 50 people right there. Right. And then like, you can just go down the list of all the like, famous MPL members, and all of, it's just so weird. Like, I don't understand who even decided this stuff, because it just literally didn't make sense to me.
Because I think that just the last minute nature, nobody knew this was coming. It was thrown together in literally about 4 days. Like I said, I got on a flight on Thursday morning and it wasn't a real thing. And when I got off that flight at 1 a.m. on Tuesday, the same day that the event happened, like, it was a thing I had to do. I was a few hours away from doing it, and I didn't have all my stuff prepped, and that sucks. But it is what it is. I was invited, and there's nothing to complain about there. I do think that if they're going to do more of it, it will get better. So that's just my hope. I have a feeling that this was a thing that got really like last second, like, hey, we pushed up the paper release. Now we have a 6-day dead zone. And we've talked about that on the podcast in the past. We have the 6-day dead zone where it's out in paper, but it's not out on Arena. So the meta is meaningless. And they found a way to fill at least some of that space with a streamer showdown. Awesome. Just next time, hopefully we'll know it's coming and they can work on their guest list. And it doesn't have to be this hard, man. Like, when somebody is a proven content creator and or MPL player, it should be like, have their email by now, right?
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, they must. I don't know. It just blows my mind. It's hard for me to conceive of it. But I agree. What I heard was that the hardest was for limited streamers. Like, apparently queue times were like up to 10 minutes for the limited portion. Yeah. And that's embarrassing. It's like, you need a critical mass of people when you're doing this kind of stuff to like make it zippy and fun and have that real feeling of like you're on the arena playing, right? So in my opinion, I feel like it should be like a more the merrier thing. I don't really understand why it wouldn't be that way.
Well, back in the day for the early access Discord, it had 500 to 600 people from all around the world. They basically they kind of threw that back together, but I don't think they got nearly that many people into the server. So this, again, is hopefully something they'll fix in the future by solidifying an invite list and making sure that people have notice.
Totally. Well, at any rate, I did have a lot of fun playing in that event. I'm sure you did too. And I want to talk about it, but I feel like before we get, elbow deep into the streets of New Capenna, I just want to talk briefly about the Explorer format because, this was announced and I think it's going to mean a lot to a lot of people. And I myself was quite excited to hear about it. So let's talk about it. CGB, do you want to give the people a quick overview of what Explorer is?
Yeah, I'll try. Explorer is an MTG arena format that is designed to mimic tabletop play, paper play in the Pioneer format. Now, most of the cards and sets that are legal in Pioneer are not currently legal on MTG Arena, but a lot of the most popular cards are because of the power creep from the recent years. So you get a format that is similar to what Historic was, but it doesn't have the cards that were printed in the Mystical Archive unless they are also legal in paper Pioneer. And it doesn't have the cards that were introduced in the Historic Anthologies unless those are legal in paper Pioneer. It doesn't have the Historic Horizons cards, which were Modern Horizons and Modern Horizons 2 cards. So this sounds like it's not that different if you look at the surface of it's old cards on Arena, and the other one's old cards on Arena, cards that have rotated out of Standard. But there's actually some big differences in the formats based on the sets that are legal in them. I think, no alchemy cards and no alchemy rebalanced card, no rebalance changes affecting cards in Explorer.
Yep. No. So exactly. It's almost like, I think if you haven't been following along paper Magic and you're just an arena zoomer and that's the only experience with Magic you've ever had, this might seem like kind of a confusing format to you. You can kind of lump it along with Modern and Legacy and these other formats that you hear boomers talk about. But I like that you highlighted that it's going to feel similar but significantly different to Historic. And I thought I would just play this fun little game with you, CovertGoBlue.
Okay.
Where I list a handful of cards and you tell the people whether they're going to be playable or available to play in the Explorer format.
Oh, God. You know I don't play these formats that much. Okay. All right.
You're a pro. You got this. All right. You ready?
Okay.
So all you have to do is say, yes, it's in the Explorer, or no, it's not. All right. Let's go. Shock Typhoon.
Yes.
Teferi Time Raveler.
Yes, it's in... Wait, are you talking about legal?
Legal.
Okay, this is controversial because I believe you threw me for a loop with this because you said that that Teferi Time Raveler was banned in an event you entered for Pioneer, but then we tried to talk about it on the podcast and you made it sound like it wasn't. So I feel like I'm getting misled. I'm going to go with Teferi Time Raveler is not legal in Explorer.
Yes, that is correct. That is correct. It's back in Historic, but it has been banned in Pioneer. How about Lotus Field?
Lotus Field. No, Lotus Field is definitely on Arena. I don't know why for a second. I was thinking of a very old card, Lotus Bloom, instead, and that's not it. Okay, Lotus Field. Lotus Field is legal in Explorer.
Yes, that is correct. How about Luris?
Luris is not legal in Explorer because it's banned in Pioneer.
Yes, it's banned in Pioneer. That is correct. Okay. Let me think of other cards that are on Arena. Oh, okay, Ulamog. Legal in Explorer?
It is legal in Explorer because Battle for Zendikar is legal in Pioneer.
Correct.
Yes.
Okay.
I was worried about that one. I had a minute of doubting when that set came out. Okay.
No, you're doing good. Emrakul, The Promised End. Speaking of Eldrazi.
Not on Arena, therefore it's not legal in Explorer.
Yes,
That's a
it's not
good.
an
That's
explorer.
that is a gotcha. That is a gotcha. If I've ever
There
heard
you go.
one.
There you
Okay.
go. Okay. Phyrexian Tower.
Not legal in Explorer.
Correct. How about Phyrexian Obliterator?
Oh God. I have no idea when that card was printed. Oh no. No, not like this. I have no idea when that card was printed, but I'm going to guess it's really old, and I'm going to say it's not legal in Explorer.
Yeah, that's correct.
Am I right?
It's not legal. Yeah, it's not legal. So
That was a
anyway,
really tough one.
we're we're gonna be playing this game for like basically for as long as the Explorer format exists. You're gonna have moments where you're like, wait, that card's in this format, and then you're gonna have other moments of like you'll be like in arena typing and you'll be like, wait, where the fluff is that one? Like you'll be like, wait, they didn't print dig through time on arena. What are you doing, Wizards? So anyway, yeah, it's really interesting. So Pioneer is this interesting format where you have cards that have been banned in Modern that are still legal in Pioneer, presumably because the support just isn't quite good enough to make the cards overpowered. So, you're able to play stuff like Dig Through Time. Like there are just like random cards that show up in the format, and you're like, wait, like what's this? Just completely overpowered card. Treasure Cruise is another one. Yeah, you can play Treasure Cruise and Pioneer. It's really weird.
Yep, there's I've seen Arclight Phoenix decks with Temporal Trespass. Do you know what that does?
Yes, I do.
Most arena players have no idea.
The extra turn delve spell, right?
Yeah, it can be blue to take an extra turn if you have enough cards in your graveyard.
Which is just gross.
Good stuff. With Galvanic Iteration, not bad.
Not bad indeed. So yeah, Explorer, I think it's going to appeal to a lot of people. I think that there are a lot of people who, when it really comes down to it, like they want to play Magic the way Magic has been played basically forever. They don't want to mess with these digital only cards. They don't want to mess with cards that change. They just want to like get a collection and be reasonably confident that the collection is going to be playable unless something gets banned, in which case they'll get the wild cards back. It's a very kind of established way of playing, and there's basically no gotchas. And I think a lot of people like that. So,
yeah, we can take all the dinosaurs. We can put them on an island off the coast of Costa Rica where they can be untouched by the outside world and they can live in peace and harmony.
I like what you did there. But so yeah, I don't know. Anything more you wanted to say about the Explorer format?
My joke might have offended some people. I actually think it's first of all, I think that they actually did a ton of damage to Alchemy and Historic and just public goodwill by doing these things in the wrong order. If they just created this and then released Alchemy, I mean, it takes out at least not all the venom. Let's say about a 40% shave of the venom. People are just going to play Explorer instead, or just announce them at the same time. Just let people know that if you nerf a card, it's not going to goof up their Eternal format, because apparently that is, we talked about on the show, we don't get it, but it hits hard because there are people who have not let this go. I know they post a lot of comments on YouTube when they're not happy.
Yeah, no, indeed. So I think one of the big questions, and I think like a big reason that people are still maybe skeptical about the format, is just how they're going to roll it out, and economically how they're going to roll it out. And, they were saying that it's going to take them a couple of years to get it on Arena. And
Pioneer, that is. Pioneer.
Yeah. Pioneer, the full Pioneer. Exactly. Yeah. Sorry, I didn't clarify. And, and I think there are a lot of people who are like, they look at the list of cards that would be needed to make like a functional Pioneer format on Arena, and it's really not that long. I mean, I think you could add 30 cards to Arena and have like a skeleton of the Pioneer format already playable. And then you could add like 300 cards to Arena and have most of the format playable. And, if we look at these like recent set releases, are like, we have a 300 card set coming to Alchemy soon. We've also had like 1,000 card set releases on Arena before. So it's clearly possible. And the question is, are they going to roll out these like, 15, 20 card anthologies slowly just to like totally milk people's wild cards. What do you think?
So they've revealed a little bit about this. I got it from a weekly MTG stream notes. And just for everybody at home, there's been a lot of announcements about organized play on Arena, about changes on Arena to events and all of these formats and all of these things that I haven't even read yet. You heard a little bit about how my schedule was last week. We're mostly playing with new cards, and then we'll catch up on that stuff later. But something I definitely remember on this is they said that the historic anthologies, a product they've done in the past of 25 to 30 cards introduced specifically for historic from past sets, will have cards in them that are legal for Pioneer. If this doesn't make you grumble a little, like your reaction is the right one. If you hear that and you're like, oh, okay, here's the problem. They still called it a historic anthology. Yeah. Why is that a problem? Because they sell these in a bundle. What if half the cards are for historic and half of them are for Pioneer? That's not going to make the people who like Pioneer very happy. No. The people who play historic might be really happy, but the Pioneer folks don't want to buy a bundle to get their Pioneer cards. They are avoiding formats like historic. Like, these things are not, in my opinion, a majority of the people who are going to love one of these formats or the other aren't interested in mixing them very often. Yeah.
You know what it reminds me of? Like, before the 2008 economic crisis, it was basically like a real estate crisis. And what was happening was that people were taking like a portfolio of like 80 or 90% like solid real estate investments.
Okay, we're getting real.
They were just like
I
putting like these toxic bonds in there, and they were kind of like padding out the investment suites with all of these shady investments. That's kind of what it feels like. It feels like they're trying to kind of like backdoor you and basically they're like cutting the potency of these releases. And I don't like it, man. It just feels weird. I'm like, why can't they just give the people what we want?
They've said 3 to 5 years for Pioneer. It sounds like they plan to introduce the cards necessary to build out the format through these historic anthologies. And you're right. They could do a 300 card set and probably knock it out.
Yeah.
But, I mean,
whatever, man.
Money. It's money.
I don't know which fat cat's making these decisions. Watch, it's probably Jetmir. Jetmir is just like up at Wizards headquarters, just like ha 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 ha, meow 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 meow, whatever evil cat noises he makes. But yeah. Anyway, we the humble plebs, we beseech you, Wizards, just do the right thing and let us play the formats we love. So speaking of formats we love, CovertGoBlue, it is time for us to go back to the streets of Mob Nixilis, otherwise known as New Capenna. So we both, let's start with the early access event. We both played in this event.
Mm-hmm.
How did it go, man?
You did a long stream, I believe. Like, I remember you were live most of that day and night. I stopped in multiple times to see which odd contraption of various green and blueness you were working on. So yeah, I'll go first because you might have a lot more on this than I do. I was really tired, like dead tired. So I don't remember very much, to be honest. What did I do? I believe I built like a Grixis deck with Ob in it, a Jund deck with Ob in it. I think by the end of the day I was trying... No, I think that's all I played on stream was a Grixis deck with Ob-Nixilis and a Jund deck with Ob-Nixilis. And that card is really stupid. Oh my God.
Yeah.
And a big part of it is I didn't want to play against it because I realized quickly that being on the other end of it was just, it was just tilting. And I thought it would actually shorten my streaming life to be on the other end of it, playing like something like blue-white control that just can't deal with the card.
Oh my gosh, nightmare matchup.
Yeah.
Particular archetype.
It's so bizarre because you can't counter it. If they pull the casualty, it's copied, you can try to fill your deck up with 1 mana removal spells and hope that they never untap with a creature on turn 3, but that's an unrealistic way to play Magic. I just couldn't find a useful answer, and the best answer I could find were things I definitely didn't want to do. Thalia is a wonderful answer to Ob Nixilis, and most of the things that Ob Nixilis presents as are like Skyclave Apparition and various other just cheap creatures that attack and smash the thing to bits. And I feel like there's been an interesting social media discourse around Ob Nixilis. There are people who play reactive decks or are playing what I would consider pretty strange Ob Nixilis piles, saying, they're being like, this is probably insane. I really hope that this gets banned. This is Oko 2.0, because that's how we talk in Magic now. We talk in extremes. That's what gets retweeted, not the lukewarm take. And then there's the people, I don't know if they're just playing mono white left and right, or they're just all about the 1-2-3 curve, but they're like, Ob Nixilis is no good when you're behind. I've just been smashing people who play Ob Nixilis all day. And is the truth somewhere in the middle? Probably, but the fact that the card is so insanely polarizing on its own makes it worth talking about. So it has to, I think every conversation about Streets of New Capenna has to start with Ob Nixilis.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I mean, most people had it at the top of that top 10 list for the new format for that reason, because it's just clearly like head and shoulders as a card, as a concept, kind of above anything else that they printed in the set. And here's kind of my thought on Ob Nixilis. Have I beaten it? Yes, I've beaten that card plenty of times. Have I beaten that card playing a deck that wasn't specifically teched to beat that card? Not very often. And I think therein lies the rub, right? Because I think it's fine. Like, for example, Goldspan Dragon. Like, you have a certain amount of cards in the format that are just like the best cards in the format. They're always going to be the best cards. Some cards always going to be the best card. It's going to be a groaner every time it comes down. And, various people such as myself will think at various points, yeah, that card should have probably been banned at some point. The difference, though, is that cards like Goldspan Dragon, first of all, they cost 5 mana. So they give you plenty of time to get set up and kind of anticipate them. And, Goldspan, like, for all of the damage that it does, you can just kill it with a removal spell. Your opponent actually has to have the cards to back it up. There are various things that have to go right in order for a card like that to remain threatening, right? And I think one of the issues with Ob Nixilis is that all it asks you to do is to play cheap creatures, which is good in Magic anyway. It's a good thing to do in Magic, right? Play a cheap creature on turn 1 or 2 and cast Ob on 3. That's all it asks you to do, right? Now, what it asks from the opponent is astronomical. And I think that you really highlighted this, right? That the opponent doesn't just get to say, oh, problem permanent. Do I have an answer? Yes or no? Is my opponent able to protect it with this other random spell they have in their hand? Yes or no? It's not like that. I mean, it's like Ob can come down and immediately make like 4 permanents, right? You could, like, if you sack a creature with enough power to Ob, you can like have 2 planeswalkers and 2 creatures at the end of that turn. And that is just
assuming
so much heat.
And you might have played something on turn 1 as well.
Yeah, no, exactly. No, you're right. I was playing like right before we jumped on this podcast, and I had a sequence where an opponent, like, at the end of their turn 3, they had 3 creatures out. They had 2 Obs. They had an Anvil. And I think they even had like a treasure or like a blood token or something as well. And so like their board is flooded and they're just like, go, bro.
Yeah.
What do you got?
Good luck.
If they're on the play, you're like, great, draw my card, play my 3rd land.
And I guess I'll Endless Detour, something. Which is a universal removal spell at 1 for 1. Yeah, right? One of these like 5 problematic things. Yeah.
Yeah. And at some point on my first day of playing on the ladder, an opponent actually had 4 copies of Ob Nixilis on the battlefield in front of me. Something that hasn't really been advertised about this card, you can actually have as many copies of Ob Nixilis on the battlefield as you are able to get the copies going.
Yeah.
And not just through freaking a Seeker's Chariot either. Like, if you're able to get Ob back from the graveyard, you can keep casting it and the copies stick around as long as your opponent's not able to kill them. So there's many ways that you could theoretically just build an entire army of Obs.
Yep, you can bounce the original and replay it and just make another copy and another copy. If you draw 2 to 3 Obs, you can just make sure that you minus the real one for the devil and then sacrifice the devil to play a new one, making another copy. Like it's never a dead draw. And I think that the part that the detractors will say, well, it's not that good, it's not that impressive, is it's not that good when you're behind. Like when you have no board whatsoever and the opponent's leaning on you, then yeah, Ob's not the best card to have in your hand. You have to do other things. I will tell you, I feel like I pretty much solved that problem. Because my early versions, Ob Nixilis in Jund and Ob Nixilis in Grixis, were very kind of like they scaled up. They cast like Invoke Despairs and they cast Burn Down the Houses and they had Hagra Mauling in them and they had other like 4-drops and maybe some other Planeswalkers and they had Charms. So those are 3 mana apiece, right?
Yeah.
If you play Ob with 1 mana removal, you're never that far behind. No. So there's a lot of good 1 mana removal. Like there's Voltage Surge and there's Bloodthirsty Adversary and there's that new card that has Casualty that does like 3 damage to this and 3 damage to that. And there's Strangle. Yeah, Strangle's a new one. So like Ray of Enfeeblement is a card I started to play at the end of the last format on Best of One just because it wasn't even that bad if your opponent didn't play white. And yeah, if you have like 8 1-mana removal spells, you're never very far behind. So whereas Ob was like a bridge and kind of leading up to cards like Invoke Despair in my older decks, now it's like the top end and all my cards are insanely cheap and it never feels like Ob is a bad draw because I've always got like some little creature and I remove the things that put Ob under pressure or made it inconvenient.
Yeah. You know, the card it reminds me of a lot actually is Luris. You know what Ob reminds me of is like pre-nerf Luris, where like, do you remember those like initial Luris decks they had in the format that were basically like all 1-drops and maybe you had like a couple of powerful 2-drops and the plan was just to like play Luris on 3 pretty much every game and just like
before the tax. Okay.
Yeah.
I blocked those times out of my life.
But like that's kind of like that's how it feels like to me is like you have these situations where you're looking over at your opponent's board on turn 3 being like what happened, like where did this game go wrong for me, kind of a thing.
I played a tap land and then I cast a creature, or I played a tap land and then I cast like just an incidental like card draw spell, or hell, play a Search for Azcanta. It doesn't matter, you're behind 1 billion permanents to 1.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean I also just think that like the whole just play creatures lol is like, okay, like that's fair enough, but like what about those of us who like to play mid-range? What about those of us who like to play ramp? What about those of us who like to play control? I mean, it's like that's like a very large amount of the potential archetypes in Magic that are all looking pretty shoddy against Ob, to be honest. So it's not that there aren't answers, but it's kind of like, if you want to play control, I feel like what answers does white really have? Like, are we like what? Like, what's that card? Devastating Mastery?
Yeah.
Is that like the only card that we have?
It's like the best thing I've found, and it's not great. I mean, if you're on the draw, you're not playing it till they've had Ob out and plus both of them for 2 turns, probably. And then you're casting it, and they're going to bounce you cast it for the student cost, it bounces the copy and resets the token situation. They're still just going to return the real Ob to their hand and play it again. It doesn't solve the problem. And then if you cast it for 6, well, if they had Ob on turn 3, what is turn 6? You're just going to die to their creature land because you tapped out. It's unreasonable. My first approach with playing control, trying to answer the situation, was 3 to 4 Devastating Mastery. It's down to 1. The card just isn't the solution. It's too slow. And I don't have a great solution other than they don't draw perfect. Please don't draw perfect. That's my solution so far.
Right. Well, and exactly. And I mean, I think about, again, like if you want to play control, I'm kind of feeling like burning down the house is probably the best solution.
Yeah. Something with Goldspan Dragon to at least fly over, kill 1 Ob, then cast your dragon's fire and kill the other, right? Maybe something like that. But I don't like that control. I'm really picky, dude. I like my blue and my white and my black. I like my espers.
And that's the thing, like a card that makes already good archetypes still good is like really boring, right? So, we kind of want something else to do. And then like if I go over to like, okay, for example, one of my favorite ways to control wide boards playing Simic was Cyclone Summoner, right? Which is also just not that good against top Nixilis.
I've had a lot of people ask me if Cyclone Summoner is like a solution. What do you think of that suggestion, Arjuna?
I could say a couple of short words, which aren't really podcast worthy, about that solution. But yeah, let's just kind of imagine it, right? So like you spent the whole game ramping towards your Cyclone Summoner, just getting totally chunked by Ob-Nixilis.
Say you did it right. It's turn 5. Say we actually effectively ramp too. It's turn 5. They've already obbed you twice.
Yeah, so like we did it, right? So unless like if you've been ramping, you haven't really been affecting your opponent's board. So by the time your Cyclone Summoner comes down, there's probably going to be like 1 or 2 non-token creatures in addition to all the obs. And basically like next turn, they just like play out a creature, play ob again, make a 1/1 chump blocker, which just somehow totally stops the towering steamroller, which is a 7/7 giant, dead in its tracks. And just like good luck basically getting past an army of like stupid, anvil tokens or like stupid ob tokens or stupid whatever tokens while your life total just continues to get chunked and chunked away. So yeah, not the answer, crafties. So
I feel like my experience in the early access was playing Ob because I felt like I was a fool if I didn't. So that was basically what I played. So now now that mine is out of the way, and again, I was tired. Like I bowed out, I think after 4 or 5 hours, I really needed the rest. And then I still recorded some videos after I took a nap. It was what a day. But you put in a lot more hours and you played a lot of different stuff. So I want to hear more of the overview of what happened in your early access event.
Yeah, it might have been the longest stream that I've ever done. I think I streamed for 9.5 hours. So that was definitely a chunk. And, I tried a handful of things, but, I basically stuck to Bant, right? Because everyone knew that Bant was going to be my, wedge, slice of the pie, whatever you call it. So I started out, it's actually really interesting. The deck that I started out with was an earlier version of what I ended up playing like on day one. And it's just like something that I've been working on since then, which is actually a mono green ramp deck. And here's what I figured out, okay? I was like, we can't bounce ob. If we're not playing aggro, we can't reliably like swarm ob in the early game. So what does ramp do? What's ramp's answer to actually dealing with ob? And the 2 things that I came up with were life gain and trample.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And so fortunately, they printed this amazing new card in this set called Titan of Industry. I'll say that again, called Titan of Industry. And this card, this beautiful, wonderful, luscious card, was just smashing for me all day long. That card is the truth. I don't know whether it's going to end up like in the sweaty Proto metagame version of this format, but like on day one, that card was absolutely a house. It was like Tower of Power. People couldn't deal with it. It's so versatile. And it's a total Ob-Nixilis murderer as well. So, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to know your take on... So I'm looking up your deck list, first of all, pulling that up. And I ran into this today. I ran into somebody playing this deck today.
Oh, really? Someone was playing the decks?
Yeah. So I have questions.
Okay.
All right. Question number 1. Shield counter on the Titan. How impactful is that?
I hardly ever did it.
Okay.
I think the only situation in which I chose to do that was when I expected my opponent to play like a destroying board wipe the next turn, which almost never happens because people aren't playing those in the format.
I play them and they named it against me and it pissed me off.
Yes.
Dude, I can't. I have that Doomscar foretold. I got that mastery in hand, and they bring down this Titan and they name like they named that shield counter, and I'm like, I don't have 8 mana to March of Otherworldly like this. I'm gonna make myself a little samurai with my like Wandering Emperor or something that's left over on the battlefield, or I'm gonna Sunset Revelry, and I'm just gonna block this thing and take a bajillion damage, and then Wrath the next turn. And you know what they do? They play another one every time. I hate it. They do. They make me so angry. Okay.
Yeah. So that card's really good. Like I said, who knows where it ends up, but just like the raw power level of it is there. And it basically does all of the things that it promised to do. I did find it weak to various things, such as Riveteer's Charm was surprisingly annoying, because even though you can still make a Rhino, it's just a very efficient way to interact with the creature. So that got me a couple of times. Definitely stone cold weak to the Wandering Emperor. So just like think about that.
Yeah.
I had many boards where like I'd resolve it just to kind of like stabilize my board or put a threat down. But then I'd actually just end up attacking with my tokens because I didn't actually want it to get exiled. One of the reasons for that is that one of the best things to do when you're running a bunch of Titans in your deck is actually to have things like Shigeki, so that you can get them back from the graveyard. Because I'll tell you what, man, like people can only deal with so many Titans.
Not legendary.
It's just too much. It's just too much.
So you have one Shigeki in this list on Twitter. Happy with that? Didn't think about it more?
No, I think if I wasn't playing Storm the Festival, I probably would have tried to find room for 2. But this is, you know what I'm talking about, man. Once you play with a set of cards, you start to learn what you can get away with. And this is one of my tricks, is like in all of my Storm the Festival decks, I'll play one Shigeki, because you just randomly hit it off of a Storm in the late game. And that's like 4 or 5 cards to refill you, right? So yeah, that's one of my tricks in the list.
So the next part I really wanted to know, because this was the thing that happened to me on ladder where I'm looking at it, scratching my head. I didn't know it was your list at the time, but I'm like, the opponent's playing this and I'm scratching my head and I'm like, Storm the Festival and Titan of Industry. You know, so you can't hit Titan with Storm. If Titan's in your top 5 when you Storm, it's going to the bottom. Yep. These are the kind of things that when I'm deck building, I like really shy away from. But it's also the kind of thing that sometimes in practice you find is overrated, like playing Galvanic Iteration and Memory Delusion. The same deck it's a non-bow, but does it really matter? So I wanted to ask you about Storm the Festival and Titan.
So Storm the Festival was like probably the card I was most on the fence about, but here's basically why I decided to run it. Was that of all, strong card. I've just come to respect Storm the Festival, and I feel like people playing Test of Talents are like at an all-time low on the ladder at the moment. So I feel like in Best of One you can pretty much, it resolves, you know, with few exceptions.
Planeswalkers are so popular that playing Test of Talents, it is signing up for misery. But go on.
Well, yeah, and I mean, it's like now that Alrund's Epiphany's out of the format, you know, it's just like there's some really high-profile cards that aren't the format anymore that were really weak to that card. So that's one thing, and also the deck does rely on some like 4 and 5 mana permanents, and if you don't have them, like you're just going to lose to an Ob-Nixilis or kind of whatever like creature soup is on the Best of One ladder. And so, you know, again, like it's a Chariot list. Chariot, what do you know? Very good against Ob-Nixilis. And Ren and 7 is just like foundational in basically any Storm the Festival list, in my opinion. So,
okay.
So we definitely have that combo going on. But it also highlights another card, which I wanted to talk about.
Can I hit something first?
Yes.
I'm gonna let you finish, but Beyonce had the greatest music video of all time, and there is only one non-land card in this picture you posted on Twitter that has a cosmetic purchased on it, and it's Storm the Festival. So I need to know, you bought that, didn't you? I feel like I'm not gonna gloat anymore after this. I just, you know, I knew you'd love that card, man.
Dude. All I'll say is I was driven to it, man. I was driven to it.
All right.
Modern Kynan wasn't doing it for me, you know?
I understand. I really do. All right. I'm going to let it go now. I just think it's beautiful that you have one non-land that's cosmetic, then it stormed the frickin' festival. That just warms my cold, dead heart. All right. What was the card you were going to talk about?
All right. The standout card, the card I hope to draw every game, the card I'm pissed that Arena hasn't been giving me more copies of, Topiary Stomper. That card has been an absolute boss for me in these lists. Like, I have been surprised, frankly, like surprised at how good that card is. Good against mono white, good against control, good against Ob-Nixilis. That card is just good. Like, if you're building around it, if your plan is to put a bunch of lands onto the battlefield, like, that card's been an absolute performer for me. So let me give you like an example of some of the cool things that you can do with this card. Like, and here's the interesting thing. So you drop it on 3. And I think a lot of people have this idea of like, that's just going to be dead, right? Like, it's going to be like a dead game piece. People are just going to run right over it. They're not going to care about it. But like, it's a problem. Like, people know they're going to have to deal with it eventually. And like, what can happen is that you can actually get into these states where, kind of like we were talking about before, like, people are turning sideways and they're lowering your life. And then suddenly you like drop land 7, you play a Titan of Industry, you make a Rhino, you gain 5 life, and now your Stomper's online. And all of a sudden, mono white's like, hold up, like, what just happened to this board state? I was not prepared for this. And all of a sudden, they're just getting smacked for 4 vigilance.
Yeah, in that example, if they take the 4 vigilance and they were at 20, you haven't done a single other point to them, they fall to 16, and then the next turn, you have 15 power. You are a Blizzard Brawl away from, and them having 1 blocker away from them dying.
Yes.
Lethal.
Okay. So, and then let's talk about like, I don't know, anyone playing Control, relying on the Wandering Emperor to take out attackers. Yeah, the creature's vigilant. So, you know, good luck with that.
It's what I loved about Briarbridge Tracker, man.
It's so good. It's so good. And like, I've had so many games against controlling decks where like I'll play the first Topiary and I get another land. And then like, if I have that 6th sense, like, oh, they're gonna wipe me or whatever, I'll just play another one, right? You get another land. And then you have 8 power on the board. And like a control mage can't ignore that, right? They're just cracking in every turn. They have to do something about it. And as soon as they do, like, now you have 8 mana or whatever you ramped up to, you can follow up with a Titan. You can Shigeki back. Like, you can just, it sets you up so nicely. So I found no matchup in which the card was dead. And another thing that, like, a curve I actually really enjoyed doing is sometimes you'll go like, maybe you'll do like a emergent sequence into a turn 3 chariot, right? And then on turn 4, you know, a lot of times people will be like, you know, I want to be playing maybe like Ren and 7, or I want to be playing like some other impactful 5-drop the turn after I play the chariot. But sometimes like you look at your opponent's board composition, or maybe they leave up mana, or maybe like this, maybe that. You're like, this isn't going to work out for me to play my Planeswalker. So you can play your Topiary Stomper and keep ramping up to like a Storm the Festival, say, and you can immediately crew your chariot and start getting in. And like, there were just so many sequences where dropping it the turn after I played a chariot just like put the perfect amount of pressure on my opponent and kind of like stymied the removal or the counter spell or whatever that they were leaving up to deal with my follow-up play.
I have, there's one more new card in here. It's Workshop Warchief, the relative of Thragtusk. I want to know how it did. I really want to know the blitz to cast ratio.
Okay, so there's only one reason this card exists, in my opinion, and that's Ob-Nixilis. And so for specifically that card and those decks, the card is really, really good. And yeah, it was like, I would say 75% blitzed.
Okay.
Yeah, I think part of that is just that like the deck's heavy in 5 and 6 drops, and so you tend to want to play those out first. The situation I really like it for is for like the second Ob, right? Or like the post Meat Hook Massacre, right? Because this is what typically happens is like you'll get this really aggressive board and you'll attack down the Obs, and then at some point they'll get up to enough mana where they can wipe your board. and then they'll reestablish. And at that point, the card's so good because it just comes out of nowhere. It's like too big for their blockers. It leaves behind another attacker that can keep pressuring Ob, and it gains you that critical life. So if it weren't for Ob-Nixilis, I just like probably wouldn't run the creature at all.
Okay. Arena been feeding you a good amount of land. I mean, you have 27 land and you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 ramp spells.
Yes, it's actually, Arena has been like mercifully wonderful to me in the land arena. But I think like it can't be overstated that Neverwinter Dryad is just a good Magic card. Like people who underestimate that card do so at their peril. And one of the reasons it's so good is that like you can keep a 2-lander with a Neverwinter Dryad and have a reasonable confidence that you're going to hit your 3rd land drop. And that's what sets you up for your Topiary Stompers and whatever else. So basically it games the best of one system in a way that I like.
I'm enjoying looking at your Twitter feed right now because it's this combination of suck it, Ob player, look at my 2 to 3 Titan of Industries, I trample you to death, die, and okay, here's a picture of 4 Obs on like turn 4, and this is, and you're at 6 life and they're at 30, and it's like...
I won that game though. I won that game. That's what I'm saying.
Of course you did.
That's what I'm saying. So yeah, I don't know how good this mono green deck is overall, but it is a lean and mean Ob-Nixilis killing machine. And so anyway, I've definitely been having fun playing it, and it's got game against mono white and a bunch of other nonsense too.
Nice. So that was the standout to you. Did you have any other fun ones that you come to mind from your stream?
Yeah, so the deck that I probably spent the most time playing was it was a Bant Storm the Festival list. I just can't quit that card, man. But here's the reason why. It was a Simic Ascendancy list. And in my opinion, like if you're playing Elspeth and you're playing Simic Ascendancy, that just screams Storm the Festival to me.
Is it Simic Ascendancy? Do you mean Broker's Ascendancy?
Oh, Broker's Ascendancy. That's what I mean. Yeah, yep. So, yeah, that card, I don't know how good that shell is, but I will say, like, once, if you do the thing, like you get your Chariot down and your tokens and you get your Broker's Ascendancy down, like it goes off really quickly. You just build up so much momentum. It's really hard for the opponent to deal with it. All of a sudden, you're ultimating your Planeswalkers and stuff. So, yeah, that deck was a lot of fun, but probably too slow.
I don't know if there's a good way to speed up a deck that features like a turn 3 kind of nothing on the board play without like a Birds of Paradise type card in the format, or a Noble Hierarch, a Llanowar Elf, something to help you cast it, right? I don't know.
That's it. I mean, yeah, it's really interesting how like you run into this problem a lot with Storm the Festival, where you want to run these interesting permanents like Mirror Box and stuff to hit off the Storm. But then like, you know, you get these situations where your opening hand is like 3 lands, 2 of that random 3-drop, and a couple of Storm the Festivals or whatever. And it's just so rancidly bad, right? So yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it's actually going to be a thing, the Broker's Ascendancy, but it's a really incredibly powerful card.
Okay.
And it, you know, combos very well with Elspeth. So let's talk about Elspeth a little bit, because, you know, I spent a fair amount of time playing with the Planeswalker, and I've come to the conclusion that, like, I think it's, if not a win more card, then like it's bad when you're behind, basically. And I never really found a situation where like the hope was that like you play Elspeth, you hit some relevant creature off the top of your deck and it protects a creature and you feel good about it. But by and large, I just found it to be kind of underpowered in that situation. It was amazing, like a parity, right? Or it was amazing for, you know, like getting a token up in the air to kill your opponent's Planeswalker or whatever. But like, I don't know. In the end, that the card didn't impress me in like a competitive sense.
If a +1/+1 counter plus ability every turn is allowed to like keep happening, keep snowballing without you being able to kill all the creatures or the Planeswalker, yeah, that card runs away with the game really fast. But it is kind of reliant on coming down in a situation where you're at parity, maybe slightly behind, but the opponent doesn't have removal so that your creature can stabilize. And it's just pretty unreliable to expect a creature to stabilize in current Magic. It's been that way for quite a while, I think. But the card's definitely not bad. I stand by, like, it'll be a one of in a deck here and there, and definitely a cool sideboard card, but probably not a staple, not something you like build your whole curve towards, because I mean, it's a like turn 4 they wrath you, and then you untap with the Elspeth, and you can try to hit something nice off the shield counter, but they only have to answer one thing, and it's not the end of the world.
Exactly. Yeah. So I messed around with a lot of different Bant lists. People were like really excited for some reason for me to build like a Bant deck, and I didn't really know why. Like I don't really know what we get out of ramping in Bant. Like I think for me the most compelling thing was kind of like we were talking about last format, where you just have an Azorius control deck with like a Turtle Shigeki looping lockout.
So I can talk about that if you want me to.
Yes. Let's get into some of your shenanigans.
All right. So we move from the early access event to release day, which was at the time we're recording yesterday. And one of the finest release days in MTG arena history. They're known for being just you log in, and at the time they said they would, you get to play Magic, right? I will say this. If you woke up to try out these new cards, you would find the store fully functional, which has not often been the case. The store, you can say Wizards got their priorities in order, because that store worked perfectly, and it was stocked with all the new cards and bundles and cosmetics. And then you would build your deck and you would open your packs and you'd be like, oh my gosh, this is going so well. And then you would just try to play a game against anybody in an event or a play queue or a ladder, against really anybody in the world. And you couldn't do it. Just the matchmaker completely down. I don't know how long. It was between 3 to 5 hours. I was live the whole time, just filling time. Like, dude, oh my God.
I feel like that the first half of the stream was just you getting debated. Like someone would come in the chat and be like, CGB, it works. And you'd be like, oh, does it really this time? And then it'd be like, network disconnected.
Yeah, because Crokies gave up and logged off, so they all came to my chat to debate me, because that's the culture. That's the culture of Twitch at large, which honestly I enjoy it at the end of the day, but I like a lot more being in Crokies chat and doing it to him than getting it done to me. But yeah, we watched everything from YouTube videos and just all kinds of stuff, just waiting. I played against Amazonian in some direct challenge games. She wanted to duel, so I did a little bit of that. But I mean, for the most part, it was filling time. And then I think with about 2 hours, I think I streamed about 2 hours after it finally started working. And the only deck I played was a blue-white control deck, splashing green for Broker's Charm and for Endless Detour. And by the end of my work on the deck, it had a Shigeki. And the idea here is, as much as I like the Sky Turtle and it feels very satisfying and very clean, Endless Detour is a really flexible card. Like, it can do so many things. You want 4 copies anyway, in my opinion, in that deck. So you don't need another spot on the Sky Turtle. If you have like a Shigeki and Memory Deluges and Broker's Charms to draw through your deck, if you Shigeki back like 2 or 3 Endless Detours and you just use the Endless Detour to get back the Shigeki, it is a little slower because you lose like a draw step, but it's effectively the same. You're just continually getting these awesome answers that lock the opponent out of the game and setting up this loop that the more mana you get, the more cards you get back, and you just do it again and you do it again and you do it again, and you're never going to deck. You can just keep endless detouring to the top of your own deck and just redrawing your graveyard. And man, that is satisfying for me.
So, but you didn't stop there. Now, I remember seeing some Lithoform engine shenanigans.
I tried a variety of endgames. The Lithoform endgame is interesting because if you play Lithoform Engine and then use it to copy Endless Detour, you basically can target the opponent's thing and then use the copy to target something in your graveyard, so you're getting something back at the same time, which can be another Endless Detour. So the idea being that if you're drawing Endless Detour every turn and the opponent is drawing the same card every turn because you're Endless Detouring them every turn, then you're kind of in a stuck state, right? They can't win. And they'll eventually, run like eventually they'll submit to the pain. But I also included one copy of Teferi the one who slows the sunset.
The sunset. Yeah.
Because if you activate a creature land and you use Teferi and you copy its ability with Lithoform Engine, you can gain semi-infinite life, as much life as you're willing to click for. Because you just keep untapping the Lithoform Engine with the copied ability and the creature land and a regular land, generating, 2 mana and another Lithoform trigger every single time. So that was fun as Ob could get me to 2, but then I'm going back up.
Yeah, and I mean, let me think about this. So if either your land or your mana dork / creature land is able to produce 2 mana, then you'd be able to generate infinite mana with that loop, right?
That would be true. You got a trick there for me?
I'm not sure in standard. Yeah, I don't think so in standard, but I'm sure there's something we could do in
there's got to be an enchantment, I'm sure there is one. It makes something a snow land and now it taps for 2 mana.
No, you're right. They even printed one in a recent set that I think makes a permanent tap for double green or something like that. So yeah, sure. If you wanted to run something like that in your deck. But I mean, it's kind of point well taken that infinite life is usually good enough.
It can be, especially if you can't deck, because you can keep relithoforming endless detours ad nauseum as much as you need to. I ended up cutting the lithoform Teferi things in the end, just because I honestly feel like in best of one, you just can't have dead slots, and it didn't often come down to it. It was a cool thing I could do, but if I'm using Shigeki to get back a Revitalize and 2 endless detours and a devastating mastery every turn, I don't need that combo. And it was cool the first time I did it. I will tell you, having to actually click through that combo to gain the life gets really exhausting.
Yep. No, you're getting a repetitive stress injury, and
dude, carpal tunnel is becoming a serious risk to my career. All right, and we can't go there. We can't go there.
No, we want a happy CGB, and we also just want you to enjoy Magic. And I feel like at some point, doing that shenanigan is just gonna take the joy away.
And somehow I'm fine with Shigeki and endless detours, but that just brings me joy. Whereas just clicking through a Teferi life combo doesn't. I don't know how to explain it. I don't know why I'm this way. Ask my mom. I don't know.
Well, I mean, I have to say, I played against a deck similar to yours on the ladder earlier today, and it was really powerful. They had Farewell, and they had the Wandering Emperor, and they were doing the Shigeki endless detour loop. And once they get to enough mana, it's basically unbeatable. There's just nothing you can really do about it. When someone's able to spend 6 mana to Wrath the Board and 3 mana for the endless detour and whatever for the Shigeki and this and that, it's just game over.
The mana is really good. The tri-lands, if you're going to run those 3-color decks, the tri-lands plus the pathways plus the chill lands make it easy. It's amazing how easy casting a devastating mastery is. It's amazing how easy casting an endless detour on 3 and a devastating mastery on 6 is. It's kind of awesome. The Broker's Charm also, very impressive. Instant speed divination does not suck, but the fact that it's also flexible enough to hit an enchantment, there are so many things. Oh man.
Oh yeah.
Oh, there's so much.
The freaking Fable of the Bearer Breaker is everyone's new favorite card.
Oh yeah. In the early access, I played against that on turn 3, 6 out of 7 games in a row at one point, and the 7th it came down on turn 4.
Yep. So
very different experience.
And I have to say, in my experience of this new format so far, I've actually been underwhelmed by that card. I found it to be too slow, and there are too many ways to answer the enchantment part of it. So I don't know, have you seen anyone going off with that in the new format? I mean, no. I know it can happen, but have you seen anyone doing it?
No, that card I'm much more, it makes me groan a bit because it's samey. I've seen it so many times, but when I look back at the games, I'm way more likely to beat that card than a number of other turn 3 plays. I think we've all learned to swallow our pride a little. Just kill the 2/2, let them have the rummage, and then you don't have to kill the other 2/2 for 2 turns, right? Because it flips and then it comes on summoning sick, and then they still need another thing to target with it. So you can just be patient, line up your board wipe or your removal spell for that turn, and do other things in the meantime. time that keep them busy. So Fable of the Mirror Breaker, good card, but I think it probably shouldn't be a 4 of anymore if you have other things to do with the spots. 3 and 2 is totally reasonable.
Yeah, I think it's overrated. I think like word got out that it was a good card, and then like people started running it in everything. And I think that's really the wrong approach. And I think that like just because Chris Botello got away with it on stream or whatever, like doesn't mean that it's the thing that everyone needs to do. And you know, just because it's like happens to have been really, really good in the alchemy meta game for like a particular tournament also doesn't mean that you should just be jamming it in all of your red standard decks. So yeah, definitely. You know, I hadn't been playing for a little while there. I'd kind of dropped out. And I came back to that card's popularity, and I don't really understand it.
I do, but I see where you're coming from, and it's definitely not Ob-Nixilis. There are people who are trying to defend like Ob-Nixilis is totally fine, totally beatable. Fable is better. They're very different cards. I don't think that comparison is close to a thing, but Ob is unquestionably a powerful card. And it will kill you.
Yeah, no, for sure. If I had to decide which of those two cards to play, it would be Ob in a heartbeat. So let's just like go through and talk about some other cards and archetypes that we saw.
Sure.
I've seen some people try like the Rafine deck. I'm going to call it the Rafine deck. Basically like Esper, small creature, kind of like aggro, mid-range value deck. I don't know. How has that deck landed for you, the versions that you've seen and tried?
All right. So I played the very aggressive version, which is like mono white / Rafine and it connives and it divides by 0 as a spellbinder, Obscura Spellbinder, something like that. Oh,
yeah, the 4-drop.
Yeah, Bottle Brush will get it and put that there, and then you'll know the name that I'm usually good at. I loved that deck because if any bit of your first 3 turns was a good curve and it stuck around, if you untap on turn 4 with like Wandering Emperor or the Spellbinder up, it's like, they're not coming back. No. Whatever their meat hook play is going to be, and I'm going to just return it to their hand and force them to try again next turn. They're not coming back. We're done here. Rafine is sick. I have had multiple connives for more than 4 where it feels like you're just drawing an insane amount of cards. And then granted, you chuck most of them. But you end up with like 1 or 2 of the best possible cards you could have on hand for next turn, and you're attacking with a giant freaking monster, and it's kind of absurd what that card does.
Or you like pitch 3 lands that you didn't need, and you just drew 3 cards.
Oh yeah, so, that's an option as well. Yep.
Totally.
Yep. Really good flood mitigator. I was running 25 lands in a mostly white aggro deck and feeling good about it. Again, the colors were easy. Getting Esper on turn 3 wasn't... I had to cut some of my 1-drop so I could play Rafine's Tower, as that's like a pseudo 1-drop as a tap land. But other than that, we're curving. That
was my question. Were you doing like an eye twitch thing?
No. I was doing white aggro / Rafine and that 1 Spellbinder card.
That was it. So all your 1-drops were white.
Well, it's so smooth. So I had 4 Hopeful Initiates, and that was it for 1-drops. The end. Okay. And then after that, we're playing like 4 Thalia, 4 Luminarch Aspirant, and I think I had 3 Sungold Sentinel because Reanimator, for some reason, was super popular at early access.
Dude, I found that too. There are a lot of like Toxrill shenanigans.
Yeah, there was some memeing going on. A lot of Olivia plus Titan of Industry stuff going on.
Oh, wow. Okay, I didn't see any of that, but... Fun times.
But I mean, that could be Adversary, like Intrepid Adversary would fit that spot perfectly fine on any good 2-drop. And then the 3-drops were like Brutal Cathar and Paulo and Rafine. And the beauty of Brutal Cathar is you play that on turn 3, and it's like you've got all these flash threats. The Obscura Spellbinder, which I'm probably still saying the wrong word. Which you can
Obscura Interceptor.
Obscura Interceptor.
I liked Obscura Spellbinder though.
Yeah, it's a good name. It's like another card already has it or something. Elite Spellbinder.
It's like only good cards have that name.
Yeah,
funny.
But it's really cool that you can play like Thalia and Brutal Cathar and then pass, and your Brutal Cathar flips, and then you Obscura Interceptor there like overpriced meat hook or overpriced spell through your Thalia, like, because it's a creature. And like those things just felt so unbeatable to me.
Pretty clean. Yeah. Oh, and another sweet thing is that with Rafine, you can choose which creature connives, right?
Yes.
So you can just start buffing your Thalia and have like basically an unblockable attacker.
If you have like the God draw where you go turn 1 plains, turn 2 like pathway on black, turn 3 chill land that's blue-white, you can go Hopeful Initiate Thalia Rafine, and you're attacking with a Hopeful Initiate that like becomes like a 3/4 and a Thalia that becomes a 4/3 on turn 3.
Wow, that's gnarly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh no, I'm one off. The Hopeful Initiate just becomes a 2/3 in that spot.
2/3.
My bad.
Yeah. Okay, I was gonna say, but still, I mean, yeah, that's very hard to deal with. You're getting taxed. Rafine has ward. I imagine that people really struggle with the combination of Thalia and Rafine, right?
Yeah, basically a ward 2 if you curve in that manner. Absolutely brutal.
Yeah.
Did we mention that Rafine flies? Like,
yes.
Like it gets huge really quick. And it flies.
It has a big butt and it doesn't lie, man. That thing gets chonky.
We talked on the show when it was revealed. I don't know how people kill this. Well, nobody showed that they know how.
No, for sure. Yeah. So all of that sounds fun. Did it actually seem good?
I think I only lost 1 game, and then I'm like, this is white aggro, and I'm going to put this away. But the video's out.
Dude.
I definitely rampaged, and it's sad because I hate this, Arjuna. I hate that Thalia and like these kind of aggressive white cards that have been popular for a year already. They're the best way to beat Ob, though. They really are.
No,
it makes me very sad.
It's so clean. Like Thalia, Brutal Cathar takes out the devils. You get an extra 1/1 with Adeline. It's so beautiful and perfect.
Yeah, if I wish I enjoyed playing white aggro because I feel like it's the best time to be alive. Like you're living in your best timeline where they keep on making these these cards that are insanely powerful have one weakness. It's the same thing with like Alrund's Epiphany, Galvanic Iteration, right? Hullbreaker Horror. Like they keep on doing this. Wandering Emperor. They keep on printing these cards that in a vacuum are so hard to beat and pushed unless you're playing cheap creatures in Thalia. And it's just so brutal.
Yeah, she's not getting any worse. That's for sure. Yeah, which is why I've been playing chonky, rampy green creatures that DGAF.
Yeah, that's a pretty interesting solution. And I was going to say, like, kind of traditional mono green is a good place to go because of all the trample and some of the hasty trample if you want to beat Ob. But I like your kind of go way over the top. I'm not surprised coming from you, but I do like the approach.
No, I mean, I started as a Turnham Sideways green gamer, but now it's just mono 7 drops. So, okay, let's see. I've seen various like Grixis-y brews that have all seemed absolutely heinous to me. Have you seen anything in kind of the Grixis sector that looks
are these the Grixis decks that play Ob on turn 3 or the ones that don't? Because that seems to be what matters.
Yeah, I feel like the Rakdos decks I've seen play Ob are usually Jund.
Yep.
Is there a reason to play Ob in Grixis that I'm not thinking of?
I mean, there's various cards here and there. Like I worked with Tainted Indulgence, which is a really cool, like draw 2, discard 1, or just straight up draw 2. Does seem to get there, about turn 5 or 6, you get there with a nice full graveyard and you get solid draw 2 action. You also in that deck can have Expressive Iteration and Deadly Dispute, so I don't even know if you need it. The Heart Stabber. That was
going to be my follow-up,
Yeah, unsold there. Both those cards are really good. And the Heart Stabber, the blue and black for the 1/1 that when it dies, you mill 2 cards and draw a card. And if you have 5 types of casting cost in graveyard, is a 3/3 Death Touch flyer. I came down on that card after playing a lot with it as you don't need to. Like it just didn't really hold up. It's also really sad that Death Touch got significantly worse against shield counters, because those were running around quite a bit. Yeah, not great. So I'm off the Heart Stabber, and I think that leaves Grixis in a position where you don't need to be Grixis unless you really want to splash some kind of a counterspell in your sideboard, probably more of a best of 3 thing, because the Ob decks that started out as Grixis are now just really close to or completely Rakdos.
Yeah, and I mean, that's just it. Like, in an Ob Nixilis metagame, counterspells just shouldn't be like CGB. I don't know about you, but I spent a lot of early access telling people why negate wasn't a good answer to Ob Nixilis.
Oh my God. Okay, this could be a show. We did the Is It Legal in Explorer? Like, we could do the Twitch chat says this is a good answer to Ob Nixilis, and is it or not? I mean, dude, that was all day, both days.
I'll just like beat you to the chase, CGB. It's no to everything.
It is. It's no. Is the card that you're talking about, does it cost more than 3 mana? Then the answer is no. Does the card that you're talking about remove 1 planeswalker, but not 2? Then the answer is no.
It is no. Yeah.
Does the card you're talking about counter 1 spell, but not 2? Then the answer is no.
My answer was like, the only acceptable answer in my chat is it big and trampling and gaining you life? If so, yay. Or is it blowing up every single permanent on your opponent's board? Yay, that's kind of okay, but
you still have to get there. You still need like a lot of life gain and stall tactic just to blow up the board, which is so hard to do. And everybody's ready for it because you always take damage afterwards. They always have the underdog and they always have the creature land. It's board wipes, man.
Thing, right? I feel like they felt like they were being clever in printing like a connive counterspell, which was theoretically supposed to like deal with the Ob-Nix, right? So it was kind of like, I play a 1-drop, and then when my opponent goes for the Ob-Nixilis, I sacrifice it and I do that double counterspell, whatever, right? But it's like, one of those is like a good proactive play regardless, and the other is like a pretty terrible reactive play a lot of the time. And like, if your opponent suspects it, they can just like play a bunch of random 1-drop creatures and stuff that like really doesn't matter.
You're talking about the quench that has casualty. And I can't remember the name of it, but I had 2 of it in limited, and it was obnoxious. Yeah. See what I did there? It was obnoxious how like easily my opponents could play around it in limited.
Yeah. It's just, I don't know, that card. In my opinion, it seemed like they positioned that as an answer to it. To me, it seems pretty woefully underprepared to deal with that card. Is that a little chat? Is that what that card is?
No, that's the card drawing one. Is it make disappear?
Yeah, maybe that's it.
I don't, whatever. I'm just going to look bad. I am not good at the card names in this set. And I even played multiple limited events at PAX, and I'm still bad at the card names in this set. I think it's because they just don't click as Magic card names to me.
Maybe it's just that they don't click as Magic cards.
I think so. It's like this is like there are so many cards in this set that they look like a frame on a storyboard for a mob show or movie. That's exactly what they are. Like they're a piece of a storyboard.
No, you're right. You're right. The card was make disappear. And
I got one.
You know, again, like I said this during our set review, but like I feel like if tempo, like a blue tempo deck is a thing, then this card is probably going to be sweet. But other than that, it's hard for me to imagine it really seeing any play. Yeah,
and it definitely doesn't save control. I don't know what does. I play control because I love it, but I always feel like I'm dealing myself, I have chosen to get dealt from the lower half of the deck on this one. And it's an uphill slog, and I love it, but there you are. How about Angels? Have you played the Angel deck, or have you seen it?
So I haven't played with or against it. I watched Andrea Mengucci just absolutely shredding people during early access with it. I think it was the first deck that he sleeved up.
Huh.
And I mean, Giada on turn 2 is nasty.
Yeah.
Like, if you don't answer Giada on turn 2, you're in trouble. And like the curve of Giada into the one I never remember, the 3-drop that we hate. What's that card called?
Righteous Valkyrie.
Righteous Valkyrie. That's it. So that curve is just like such a solid meat and potatoes in the deck. But he was even doing good work with like the Valkyrie saga or whatever that one.
Oh, Fira's Retribution.
Yeah,
right?
Fira's Retribution.
That is no joke in an Angel deck. Like,
no.
I was actually looking back at some of my Angel videos. That deck is mostly untouched since Strixhaven and Kaldheim, and I'm like, there's not a lot of reason that we can't play this now. Elrond's Epiphany was a big problem. That's gone. This deck is evasive. That can mean it attacks Ob very efficiently. Probably drives the Anvil players crazy. So I don't know.
Yeah, that's like, if you think, how good is Ob Nixilis if like half of your cards or most of your cards have flying?
Half of your cards. I'm sorry. You are not an Angel gamer, are you? We only one card leaves home without flying, and it's Luminar Gas Pirate.
That's what I was remembering. Those decks, like, they had some clerics in them, right? Like, didn't they also play the Orzhov cleric?
I mean, you could, but you shouldn't.
Maybe not good anymore. Maybe I'm just having a standard 2022 flashback. But yeah, anyway, I think like Giada and friends are probably pretty good against Ob Nixilis, especially if you're gaining life and stuff. So I who knows, like, that deck, it probably still has the same weaknesses it did before, which is namely just like if your opponent has a couple of removal spells in key spots.
Fading Hope was a big problem for that deck because of Angel tokens, but that might be, on the decline.
Could be on the out. I always loved playing against Angels as a mono green gamer because they were always like spending 4 mana to make some big juicy creature that you could just freaking Blizzard Brawl to oblivion and smash face. So I don't know. We'll see. But I mean, Giada is the business. That card is legit terrifying.
Yeah, that's going to be the first thing I want to try. We'll see if we can make a good Angel list for the YouTube audience.
Cool. All right. So before we get out of here, CGB, let's just go down some cards and do a quick gas or ass.
Okay.
All right. You ready?
Yeah.
All right. Depopulate.
I'm going to give it gas, but I'm only running like max 2, maybe 1, and I still think Doomscar is the place to be right now. Okay.
Sounds good. How about Illuminator Virtuoso? Have you lost to that card? That's the double striker that connives.
Then I'm going to give this an ass because I did play against it, but I beat it.
I feel like if you have removal, you win, and if you don't have removal, you tend to lose.
I tend to have removal.
Okay, Sanctuary Warden.
Okay, what did it do?
5/5 shield counter, ETBs, draws a card, makes a city.
I've had it in a few decks, but I've never drawn it. Like, I was always like kind of testing one copy, but I never drew it, and I've never had it on the battlefield, and it's never been on the battlefield against me. Yeah. So I don't feel like I can judge.
I feel like that card is like wherever you, the listener, would put that on power level, that's kind of where it is.
Okay. No, wow. Way to throw it to them. Leave a comment.
Yeah, leave a comment, exactly. Ledger Shredder.
See, I'm having trouble remembering what these do.
It's the 1/3 blue flyer for 1 and a blue. Connives your opponent cast their second spell each turn.
Yeah, that's an ass for me. I even had it in limited. It was not good for me.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Okay, bad and limited. There you go.
Well, for me.
I saw you playing an offer you can't refuse. Gas or ass?
Ooh, I hate that card. But it's worth it in like a Shigeki deck because if you have that 1 extra mana, you want that 1 mana play, so that you can like Shigeki for 3 cards and cast 1 instead of Shigekiing for 2 cards. Like, it makes a big difference. So
that's kind of legit.
It's the tiniest bit of gas. I'm not happy about it.
Reluctant gas. All right, let's see. I'm basically just scrolling through the spoiler here and seeing cards that jump out at me. I'm in black and I haven't seen anything. Shakedown Heavy.
Ass.
Punisher. Ass. Yeah, I found that card to be just pretty much ass as well.
Hey, I'd never put it in a deck of my own, but I just cast it aside. Didn't even give it the respect it deserves. Just ignored it.
Cast aside. Okay, Tenacious Underdog, or as I have taken to calling it, Tenacious D.
That card is real. Oh my god, that card is gas. I don't know what the right number is. There are times when I'm like, I could draw infinite of this and I'd be fine. And there are times when I'm like, I really only have space for one or two. I think the more like blood tokens and Fable of the Mirror Breaker you insist on running, like the more you get value out of just chucking it in the graveyard, and bringing it back later, like the more you want to run. But it's a great card.
Yeah, really good card. I've been impressed with it. Okay, how about Professional Facebreaker? Played with or against this card? Yes,
played against it many times. I did lose to it once, but it was like I had a bad hand. I'm gonna honestly give that an ass. I think it's just not enough impact for the cost. I think your 3-drops have to be busted now.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like I was building like a Gruul treasure deck, and people in my chat were like, "Why aren't we playing that card?" And I just, in my gut, I just was like, just feels wrong. Just feels like it's not going to get there. And I have found it to be, on the whole, kind of underwhelming. Okay, speaking of which, Gala Greeters, gas or ass?
I mean, is one of the funnest cards. Like doing the Cabaretti make a billion creatures thing is one of the funnest things you can do. You just get that cool release of like, here's a million triggers when I play a thing. I cast Burn Down the House with 2 Galagreeters and a Prosperous Innkeeper on the battlefield making devils, and you're like, whoosh, to the moon. I don't think it's competitive good, but I mean, it is like, it's casual gas.
Yeah, I think that's actually a really good description of it. Definitely fun. It's fun with with this next card, Ginny Faye. Gas or ass? What do you think?
I've never actually made a single cat or dog token with that card, so I have to. I gotta call it ass, but that's because I've never been able to do the thing. And watching LVD, a legend, had a YouTube video doing it. I was like, this is why he's great, and I'm like, I'm whatever the hell I am, spiking with Ob, because somehow he makes this stuff happen and look easy. And whenever I try to play these things, my Ginny Faye is dead, and I'm left with like some bad token synergy. But he's great, and he made a great video that made Ginny Faye look like a bomb, and it's my wife's favorite card from the set, so some kind of gas.
I mean, I definitely went off with it and had it gone off with against me at the early access. I feel like it's probably not good enough for constructed, but like, damn, did I make a lot of cats and dogs. Yeah, that card has the power. Like, it might not be competitive, but it has the power. Okay, let's talk about the charms. Have any of which of the charms, after playing with them, have ended up looking gassy to you?
None of them have let me down. Not like where I'm looking at this and like, this doesn't do anything. You know what I mean? That has not happened. I've been impressed with most of them, actually above where I thought they would be. Just a little bit, where I'm always like, every time I open the deck builder, I'm like, ooh, can I get a 3rd charm? Because they make me really happy. Riveteer's charm in particular, I haven't done. I usually get 2 cards out of it easily when I do the draw effect, but a couple times I hit 3, feels great.
Wow.
And the card is excellent against Shigeki, and it's excellent against Goldspan Dragon. Like, they do, like, Shigeki is really unhappy when you're like, in response, I exile your graveyard.
Your whole graveyard. Yeah, I forgot that was a mode on the card.
Yeah, nice 10 mana, discard your Shigeki, get nothing. Cool, man. Yeah. Good work.
That's rad.
It's very fun. The Maestro's charm, the burn mode, a lot better, I think, than used a lot more than I thought it would be. Mostly because Ob is busted, quite honestly, and the opponents usually avoid discarding, so they end up at a really low life total, and then you're like, Maestro's charm, you lose 3, untap, cast Bloodthirsty Adversary, you lose 3.
Nice.
Yeah, and we're done here. So that's really good. But so those are the 2 that I'm enjoying the most. And Broker's Charm, I'm just drawing 2 all over the place. The fact that that's 3 mana, you had Memory Deluge, and you had Behold the Multiverse, and they were both good, and you could run a lot of both of them if you wanted to build a blue-white control deck that kept up in cards with an Izzet control deck. But the fact that they're both 4 mana means it's clunky, and you have a lot of bad turn 3s, and now you're just like, Broker's Charm, draw 2. Next turn, Memory Deluge, draw 2 more. This is for a control mirror, obviously, but it makes a big difference. It used to be that the opponent could kind of lock you out of your card draw if they had, cheap counter spells or test of talents, and now they can't really do it.
Yeah, I feel like maybe you can corroborate this or not, but I feel like leaving up 3 mana is kind of like the magic number for control, right? Where it's kind of like, I could have a removal spell, I could have some cancel variant, I could have, this or that. And I feel like, any spell that like earns its place in the 3-drop slot at instant speed in a control deck is probably worth considering.
Oh,
right?
yeah, because, Endless Detour and Charm, Broker's Charm, basically made your 3 mana spot meaningful again, because you're right, 3 mana is supposed to be a good breakpoint for control decks, but it wasn't. It was 4 mana when you had Wandering Emperor or Memory Deluge, and everything that happened before that, you usually got to do whatever you wanted unless they turn 2 foretold, turn 3 Doomscarred. And now it's like turn 3, a lot could go wrong if you don't play into it, and a lot, like something can go wrong if you don't. Do and don't push and pull is there.
Totally. Okay, so speaking of Endless Detour, I think we've both ascertained that card is, playable. Now, here's something I was like playing it in Bant lists and ramp lists and stuff like that, and I wasn't very impressed with it in a proactive deck. At the moment, I'm definitely feeling like it's more of a control card. Do you have any kind of inclination on that?
Yeah, I just think that 3 mana for a removal spell and only a removal like type effect is just it's too much now. Like you can't play Murder or Hero's Downfall, in these formats. You can't get just one thing for 3 mana. Your opponent's getting 2 Planeswalkers for 3 mana, Arjuna. You can't get one thing for 3 mana. You need it to be cheap, or you need to come with a body like Brutal Cathar and Skyclave Apparition. Like you just, if you're aggressive, your 3 mana play can't just be remove something.
Totally. Yeah, I agree. So I felt like it was only good in a deck that could really make use of the different sides, and exactly a deck that might want to, deal with something another control deck does, or get back a sweeper on top of your deck, or just like the versatility. It really seemed to be the strength of the card. And if your deck doesn't really use that, then, and want the game to go long and generate a lot of mana and leave mana up and stuff, like it seemed like it wasn't very good. Which brings me to Void Rend. Gas or ass?
Haven't played it at all. I've played it. So that's the thing. Like my Esper deck, I think, is clearly meant to be a creature deck, because Rafine is good when there are creatures already on the board when you cast it on curve. So I don't want to spend turn 3 doing a murder, even though it can hit any permanent and gets through ward. So I need to play an Esper control deck to test that theory, and I'm not excited about doing that because of the current incentives in the format. The Endless Detour deck, at least when it goes long, can create this inevitability. You can play Esper Planeswalkers, you can play Esper Angels, I guess, and you can play various Esper creature decks. And I don't know if any of those want 3 mana murder, even a very versatile one that can't be countered.
Yeah, I think that you're dead on about that. Yeah, a few people played it against me at the early access, and I was never very impressed with it.
Yeah, it's always fine. You killed my thing that probably generated 2 permanents, like my Wandering Emperor or whatever, and I'll just play the next one.
You know what it feels like to me? It kind of feels like it might end up being an important sideboard card against very specific permanents in the metagame. Like, for example, maybe if a Rafine thing really takes off and you're having a really hard time killing the Rafine.
Yeah, ward.
Maybe
Graveyard Trespasser.
Yeah. Right, exactly. Something like that. But maybe otherwise, or maybe there is some control deck that's really good at protecting a powerful planeswalker or something, and you just need to get it out of there.
Goldspan Dragon becomes a thing again.
Yeah. So I mean, I could see uses, but to me it seems like more of a scalpel, whereas the Endless Detour is kind of like a sledgehammer in those decks. How about Tainted Indulgence? You talked about it a little bit, but do you think it's actually a good card?
It's got a tough job, because if you're playing enough creatures, you have Deadly Dispute, and it's not better than Deadly Dispute. And if you are playing blue and red, you have Expressive Iteration, and I don't think it's better than Expressive Iteration. So it's hard. it has trouble finding a home, but it's a good card. I'm not sure what deck you want to play it with, because especially like if you're going to play a creature deck and you're going to play things like Ob, which there's a lot of incentive to, you would rather play a creature on turn 2 than an Indulgence. Like you want this card at instant speed to be like an option you could play over some kind of an answer or other flash threat, and just don't see it yet. Don't see the deck for it yet.
Yeah, totally. I almost think like I feel like there might just be a dedicated like Dimir deck, and if so, like cool, it's going to be a good get for that deck. But that doesn't seem to be a possibility anytime soon.
Yeah, we don't have the incentives right now to just chill back and try to control things that are uncontrollable.
Indeed. All right, well, that basically covers like everything that was on my mind for the set. Do you have any kind of closing things you wanted to bring up, CGB?
I'm concerned. When something hits you as like the groan, oh no, I guess this game is over, but it's going to take another 15 minutes for the game to end, and it's the first day of playing against it, that is scary. Like the last time I can really remember that was like Rune Crab and Omnath. Where I was just like, at the end of early access, I was like, well, I hope something is banned soon, because that wasn't very fun. So I'm worried about the Ob meta. I have this bad feeling that it's particularly harsh to what I enjoy. So my opinion might be very biased. And it maybe the data will say it's not that bad. You should just be playing white aggro, you frickin' loser, like everybody else. And then you'll solve your Ob problem, and I'll be like, fine. But right now, as something that you just can't really, you just have almost no game against as a control deck, I really wish it didn't exist.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. It's not that Ob is like unanswerable, that you can't beat it, or that it's just like so much more powerful than anything else. It's just that it really is warping. I feel like it's a very warping card, and if you want to keep up with it, you have to make certain decisions. And I feel like, just it's like the galvanic iteration Oran's Epiphany thing. Like it's just cutting such a massive swath through the meta game and making it about like just a handful of things. And I feel like that's just bad for Magic. So frankly, like I personally feel like there's this established thing that they're doing now where they're like print a set with one super chase card, which will probably end up seeing like sustained play in an older format like Modern. And it's just going to like mess up Standard for like however the too long period of time it is before they ban it in Standard. And I feel like they have this like straight to ban pipeline for certain Magic cards now. Because like, yeah, I don't know. You can't convince me that like Wizards didn't know that they were just like unleashing a nasty predator into the Standard format with this card.
Yeah, I hear you. I do. We'll see. I mean, and if nothing else, let us know in the comments. Ob or Ob?
Ob or Ob? Ob or Obbies? Okay, that was cringe.
Later, crafties.
CGB's like, I'm quitting this podcast right now.
And we're out. However you want to end that. I appreciate
that bottle brush.
I appreciate the going for it. I really do.
You've got what my dad refers to as toothbrush hair, when it's just like, which is a good thing. It means that your hair is thick and strong and full and capable of supporting itself.
I think what it means is your dad doesn't know how a toothbrush works.
Could be.